And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday night, which almost didn't happen. Yes, we have a lot to talk about this week. We have Deep In and we have a few other things to talk about. But first, I would like to wish my friend Rob, Zeb, PZ, whichever you call him, a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Zeb.
Happy birthday.
And I got my
Linux.
special Linux 60 shirt. Friend at work.
39 again, right, Zeb?
Say again?
39 again?
39 in about 240 months, I wish.
Yes. So, like I said, if everybody, I don't know how many people know the story, but when I was working with Destination Linux, PZ helped us out to the point that I don't know if we would have continued without his help. And I don't know how many people know that, but he helped with everything from the patrons to the waiting rooms to sound issues to everything. And he did it without, obviously we didn't pay him. We always joked about paying him too much, but he did it all just because of the guy he is. And like I said, it was at a time when Ryan just started with Destination Linux, and it was just we were kind of in the transition phase. And Zeb, I really appreciate that, man.
You're more than welcome. It's my love for Linux and the community that made me do it.
Excellent.
And behind the scenes here on Biddle every Saturday night, PZ is helping out with the waiting room and everything else, the chat and monitoring and links and everything else. So there's a lot behind the scenes that he does. So, like I said, happy birthday, Zeb.
Cheers. And I've got my Biddle cup. Yay.
Yes, I love it.
It's not been christened. It's going to be kept pristine.
I'm telling you, you should. It tastes better. Coffee tastes better.
Just buy a second one you can drink out of, Zeb.
Yeah, that's true. And what was good as well is Rocco's got it set up to dispatch from Europe, so you don't have to pay the ridiculous freight costs from America. So that's really
is that right? I'll have to check that out then.
Yeah, they must have an Australia one or somewhere in that side of the world.
Yep. You can check it out at teespring.com/Big Daddy Linux, I think. Something like that. I don't know. But anyway, on to Deep In, because that was the distro challenge. Who would like to start out displaying their love for Deep In?
Well, mine will be really short.
Okay.
If we time travel back a month, I first tried out Antec Designs Deep In, and it was truly awesome. He's done an Arch build with the Deep In desktop, and it was phenomenal. And no word of a lie, it gave me my best frame rates ever on Euro Truck and Tomb Raider. Fast forward this month, I reinstalled it, and I have no idea what Deep In does, but they cannot cope with 3 monitors. Absolutely atrocious that in 2018, they cannot let you configure your 3 monitors. You can set it up in NVIDIA. It all works fine. You reboot, and it goes back with the Deep In main desktop on the right-hand monitor, and the other 2 set up with some weird, obscure panning. So I've got my main monitor here, 5120 by 2160. I've got the 5K one in the middle, but it then adds a big chunk on the end that I have to go back into NVIDIA settings and take it off so it doesn't pan and scan. Woeful. So I thought, I wonder if that's Antec. Deep In, Antigos, exactly the same. They need to do some serious work on their multiple monitors. Other than that, it's a wonderful distribution. Everything works. They still haven't got their theming sorted. In other words, if you put a different theme on, the Deep In products still stay the same. But other than that, I could, if they could sort out this display monitor thing, I could quite easily use it as a daily driver. Yes. Would it ever replace Peppermint? Not in a million years. So that's my
Okay.
experience. Sort out the 3 monitors. Wendy, if you tried it, love, you'd have a nightmare with 4 monitors. It just it would really do your head in. I'm sure it would. So that was my deep in experience. Unfortunate because a month ago it was brilliant.
So let me ask you, Zeb, you talked about the Antec Design version, and I installed it. What did you think of the installer?
It reminded me a bit of the old Architect installer, and you can very easily get confused as to which main, because it's an old-fashioned, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's like an old-fashioned terminal-based install. And you go into the first item, and it takes you to a second menu, and then you go through all of those, and then you go back to the first menu. But I always used to forget which one of the 10 menus on the first screen I was on. And there was a couple of times where I forgot to set certain things up. But the beauty of that installer, just go back into the live CD, don't reformat all your partitions, just mount them and go back and do the one that you forgot. And then it all works. So once you've done it 2 or 3 times, it works well. But for a new user, it's never going to happen. I don't think anyway.
No, I mean, look, it's still an Arch install. So it was funny because after installing Arch through the terminal, then I go through this installer and, everything's familiar because you had to do that in Arch, but it's there set up for you basically with a, this is what you want, or do you want this? But still, you would still need to know what those commands are doing in order for you to understand what you were doing installing it. So it's definitely made it easier, but it's still something that's not for a new user. And I did install it, and I had some issues with the graphics, and I can't remember exactly what it was now off the top of my head, but I did have some issues with the graphics. I did find deep in itself that it's funny because there's a lot of people that are attracted to Deep In, and I guess that's because of the look. And although Deep In has settings, it's still, a lot of it is unchangeable, including the themes. And you have basically 2 options: fashion mode and panel mode. That's it. You're not changing anything else on it. And I think that the funny part about it is that people dislike GNOME because you can't change it. And yet a lot of people will say, man, Deep In's beautiful. I like Deep In. I might even run this. And yet you really can't change it. There are settings to tweak a little bit more maybe than GNOME. But the whole basic desktop environment, you can't tweak it. So I thought it was very nice looking. I'm not a big fan of the panel, or the side panel for all the settings.
The Raven thing, yeah?
Yeah, because, I mean, it's nice that everything's there, but unfortunately, everything's right there. So the whole time you're in the settings, you're looking at that right screen instead of the center of your screen, where you can resize it, open it up however big you want it. So I don't know. I mean, it's a hit or miss for me. Wendy, did you get to try it?
No, I didn't try it again this week. It's been a busy week, but I did watch Colin's review of it. So it was really pretty. I mean, I thought it looked nice. But like you were talking about, I like to be able to size my settings panel and put it where it's most comfortable to view and tweak those things.
Yep.
Especially with 4 monitors, if that was popping up in some weird place, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know if you would have got a kick out of setting up 4 monitors in there.
Probably not.
All right, Nate, did you write an article this week about it?
So I ran out of week. I lost.
Okay.
I was on my deathbed for a couple of days, so it was just kind of a terrible week. So I didn't get a chance to do like I wanted to. I actually want to try Deep In on OpenSUSE, but I actually have tried Deep In on Arch. That's the one I tried. That was the one that was recommended. And so I liked quite a few things about it. So I'll just kind of boil it down to my 4. It has a nice basic Windows paradigm, which happens to be what I'm comfortable with, and works well for my personal workflow. it's, you know, and also for a new user, I would feel comfortable, you know, firing them off with deepen. You know, it has it's elegant yet different enough to say this is something new and fresh, but it's not Windows, but it's kind of like Windows. The menus are nice and clean. I liked how they look. I have a little clock there. I'm not sure why you have to have a clock in the menu, because you have it in the corner, but you know, whatever. A favorite section would be nice instead of having just a giant scrolling list. But look, again, it looks nice. It's a fine alternative to, you know, many other Windows I've seen, menus I've seen. The approach to settings, which I guess you talked about, could you call it the Raven? Is that what you called it?
No, that's what it's called in Budgie. So that's kind of
what-
like the paradigm of it.
Yeah, and I'm not
So-
really sure which came first, Deepin or Solus. I think the Deepin one did, so that's why I always mistakenly call it Raven.
It's called Control Center, actually. They call it the Control Center.
That's really unique. The so I had the same reaction as I liked it, yet I didn't like it. It was I liked it because it was all there, but I didn't like it because I couldn't move it where I wanted. But I liked it. I mean, I guess the question is, could I live with it happily? And the answer is yes. But I'm not too terribly picky. I have my monitors kind of crunched together, so I'd be able to find it if I had to live with it.
Right.
And also I liked how everything was nice and rounded. I don't like square corners, so I got a plus there. The theming, when I changed the color, I wanted things dark. I like a dark theme. That's just how I roll. And it seems like I set the dark theme, but it didn't seem to cascade down everywhere, and I was a little confused by that. But I can set it, I guess, from application to application if I want a light or dark theme. So that
Yeah,
could
I
be
think I was watching a video where a guy said that you can switch it to the dark theme, but then for certain apps you have to go in to that app, like the file manager, I believe is one of them, where you have to actually go into the file manager settings and set it to a dark theme in order for that to honor it.
Yeah, you have to do that with pretty much all the Deepin apps.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess cool. What I did not like so much is the pager desktop switcher. Well, there isn't one. I can do like there's what's it called, multiple desktops or multitasking view. And if I were to go to that, then it shows the pager and it shows all my applications. I don't like that as much. Could I live with it? Yeah, but I just don't like it as much. I feel like it's just not quite as full featured as KDE Plasma and not quite as customizable to my liking. So and since I'm biased, I'm a KDE Plasma biased user. You know, KDE since 2003. So it's just what I like, and it's just not quite as it just doesn't feel like home to me. So the question is, at the end, could I happily use it? I would say mostly.
Right.
That's my review.
Mostly. Okay.
Mostly.
Colin, what'd you think of it?
Okay, so I actually installed Deepin before last week's show. So, and I've been interstate on the other side of the country all week, but I did get to make a couple of videos of it and uploaded them and changed them to public while I was away. Just flick the switch. So my memory's probably a little bit clouded since then. But the things that I like about Deepin, a couple of things. Well, one, I don't use multiple monitors as on the laptop, so I don't have the issues that Zeb has. So that's really good to know about those things. But I like the fact that they can give you a full screen monitor or not a monitor, full screen menu, or you can drop it down to a normal size menu. They've changed the structure of the menu. You can have categories in it as well. You can have a full screen categorized menu or just a full screen application icons. So there's a few options within that, which I like. I agree with the control center should be not just come up on the side, because I think I think Wendy mentioned she likes to have it where she wants to have it. So maybe they should change that, but they have made some nice little changes to the control center, because now you can actually, they've changed the selection criteria within the control center. So it's a lot easier to navigate. So, and they've also got the selections down the side. Once you go into one of the selections within the control center, they've actually put, I think, the little pop-ups that tell you what each icon is, which I'm pretty sure they didn't have on the 15.7. So But there's been some nice little improvements. One of the best improvements I've found is the mirrors are a lot better. They've got a lot more mirrors, a lot closer, a bit more worldwide. So I found the mirrors to work much, much better than what they have in the past. So that was my experience. I'm running it now. So I did do my videos with KDN Live. I installed KDN Live from their what do you call it? Their software, what's it called? Deep Install. And I did all my editing within the deep end, had no issues whatsoever. The only one issue I had was I solved it, and I can't remember how I did actually. Somebody told me that when I was playing, I think I was missing a codec. So I was playing some video and that kept stopping. The video kept freezing, but the audio continued. I was missing a codec. I can't remember which one. I think I did mention that.
All right, Colin, if there was one thing you could change about Deepin, what would it be?
I'd have to say it would be the settings itself, the control center. I think that needs to have its own window. So like Wendy said, you can choose where you want to put it, because if you do have multiple monitors and you got an issue, at least you can choose where you want that settings menu to be instead of just in that one side.
I have to agree. I think there should be a flip switch just like there is for the menu.
Yep.
Where you can go from the regular menu to a full screen menu. There should just be a flip switch to put it on the panel or put it on the side, or have just a regular open box, because it's great as a shortcut to settings. If you know, hey, this setting is right there, you get to it, boom, that's it. And you switch that one setting and you're done, you're out of there. But when you're in there changing a lot of settings, you definitely want to have a window.
Yeah, it is that would be another nice, good little option they could throw in there, I believe, just to give people those options. I think would be nice, because some people might be happy with where it is, but if they can put it where they wish, that would be even better. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that actually reminded me one other technical issue with my particular setup. My middle monitor is normally only 1440, so I use XR&R scale to make it 4K. So what then happened was the little panel came out halfway down the screen, and the panel that was at the bottom came halfway through the screen as well. So it remembered the 1440 size, even though it extended the whole desktop larger. So it's as if where the panel sits and where the bottom panel sits was stuck on that resolution of your monitor. So,
that reminds me, Zeb, of the graphics thing I was talking about, where I couldn't remember. What it was when I had the dual screens. So I would move a window over to the left screen, and it was almost like there was an invisible wall on the left monitor where I could only get it halfway over into the monitor, and it would stop. You couldn't go any further.
Wow.
And then like I could go down, I could keep dragging that window down underneath of it. So like at the bottom of the screen, there would be like a 2-inch space where I could move that all the way over to the edge. And I remember this happening before, and I don't on some other system, and I believe it was an Arch system. And I was, like I said, I was trying Antex, but I don't think it had anything to do with his. I just think it was because it was Arch based. But it was like I said, an invisible wall where you couldn't get any window over into that section of the monitor. It was weird. All right, Dave, did you try Deepin?
Yes, and it convinced me that I think I'm going to need to get a new motherboard, because I didn't do the Antec version. I took the actual Deepin version, burned it to a USB disk, threw it in my computer, fired it up, said start to install. And I look down and I see the light on my Windows disk flashing.
Oh, no.
So I stopped it and yanked it out and spent the next 2 days rebuilding the EFI partitions on both my Windows disk and my Arch disk.
Oh.
So I haven't gotten it installed yet, but it forced me to sort out. I think next time I'm going to go try the Antec version, because Arch I can deal with, and I know how to control that install for where I want it to be. Because even when I pulled out both my Windows disk and my Arch disk and put in just a blank hard disk, it said start to install. and it kind of went blank and just sat there for 15 minutes being blank. And I'm like, this isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, that's what everybody raved about was the. You're talking about the Ubuntu version, right? Like the deep in version, right?
right.
Yeah, everybody raves about the installer and how nice it is.
Never
And
saw
I didn't
it.
get to see it because of using Antex. So
I never saw it because I told it to start and nothing ever showed up.
oops.
So I will try again later this week with the Antec version just for my own sake because I like the Deepin desktop. I just wasn't able to get it installed this week.
Right.
Just do yourself a real favor. Pull the Windows disk out again. Even though you say you know Arch.
Windows, the reason for all problems.
Nah, come on.
No,
most of them.
It's honestly something in my BIOS that just it keeps flipping a coin as to which EFI it's going to install Grub onto.
I gotta say, Dave, that my Asus has an issue with flipping the EFI as well, and it'll reset itself for no apparent reason. Like I'll be booting off of this specific EFI partition, and then all of a sudden, like one day, it'll just boot into Windows because I wasn't paying attention because it just went through, and it's supposed to be defaulted onto whatever I'm on, and it's I agree.
So it convinced me I need a new motherboard, but
yes, me too. All right, Adam. Did you get to try Deepin this week?
So in an effort not to hose my tumbleweed install, I decided to try it on my my work machine. And I was in the process of booting it, and my boss came into the room and asked, like, "Hey, what you doing?" I was like, "I'm trying out a distro." He's like, "Oh, what distro?" And I told him it's Deepin. He's like, "Yeah, let's not run that at work." So he doesn't have quite as much trust in the Chinese as some others may.
Right.
So that was as far as I got.
All right, Thomas, did you fare any better?
Slightly. So I was not able to download the Deepin version. I ended up having to download, if I can get my mouse to work, the Xtix version of Deepin.
Oh,
Okay.
no wonder. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was okay. So went to boot it up, got into it, couldn't figure out the password, kind of getting a taste of my own medicine there for a little bit. Eventually got in. I can see the resemblance to GNOME. However, when I go into that application menu thing, all that translucency stuff in the background, it just looks super ugly. I'm sorry. Like, just no, a million times no. I get why you're doing it. It's supposed to look good, but I'm sorry, when you have such translucency that it ends up looking bad because it's stuttering. Yeah, no, just make it opaque. Just make it black, please. Just do that.
You can do that. You just turn the slider and you can adjust it.
I know. I did not get that far. I literally had 5 minutes with Deepin.
Wow.
5 minutes. Because after that, I went around and I went to start the installation, and I was digging through the settings in the middle installation, and the entire thing froze up.
Ooh.
Yeah. At like 27% or something like that.
Did you try this on a 1998 laptop or?
I tried this in a virtual machine with 2 gigs of RAM and 4 cores.
Virtual machine.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't know if you can really consider that real testing there.
No.
I'm sorry, but I can't really install for real on stuff.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. It's definitely not maybe the best option for testing it, but it is an option for testing it. I mean,
yeah,
there are distros that don't work well in VirtualBox, but in my opinion, they probably should work well in VirtualBox. So maybe not the definitive test, but definitely a side test. So
I think it depends on what you're evaluating too.
That's it.
Yep.
Because like if you're trying to evaluate performance, then it's obvious a virtual machine's never going to give you full native performance. It's
Right.
not going to happen.
Well, there's a lot of graphical limitations with that as well. Unless you're actually doing pass through, you're just going to notice huge.
Yeah, and I've tried doing pass through before, and my motherboard just does not let me do that.
It's
so
not always fun.
yeah, it takes a lot to set that up in general. But I digress. In general, it looked pretty good. I wouldn't run it on a daily basis because all that looking good, I feel like would degrade its performance. And I'm of the mindset of why do you want it to look so good that you kill your GPU by making an animation that's like 2 seconds long when I could have no animation and be going to click on this thing already. But
Well, I think that's a personal preference because there
it
are
is.
many machines out there that can run deep in without an issue.
Yeah, it is.
It
And
may
I know
not be the best for older hardware, but
yeah, and I know for a fact my machine would be able to run deep in perfectly fine if I were to install it. It's just not my personal preference. So
yeah, same with the translucency because I actually liked the translucency. So
yeah. So
all right,
I did too.
we have a new guy here, Peter.
Hi.
Yay.
Welcome.
welcome.
Long time Linux user, but first time here.
Awesome.
You can tell
So-
by the accent I'm from Kentucky.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, what are you're involved with Solus, Peter?
I've been running Solus for the last 2 years on 2 laptops, Budgie on one, and I've recently put KDE on the other, which I know you like KDE, so I've heard. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the system. I also run Linux Mint Debian on an old netbook, which works fine, and I have a Chromebook. So I've got many different environments. I'm looking at the distro watch for Deepin. By the way, I didn't know there was homework.
It's okay. It's not a mandatory homework.
I'm looking at the distro watch.
It's masochistic homework.
One thing I've learned from this chat is that Deepin is a desktop you can put on many distros and not just its own one. So.
Yep.
One of the good things that Deepin has done lately with that is that they've rebranded all of their applications to not have the name Deepin in it. So it's just terminal and this and that. So that way, when you're running it in another environment, it will eventually just say terminal or whatever.
Right.
All mine say deep in something.
It's not updated yet then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure mine say deep in as well.
It
Was
was a very recent change.
Oh, okay. All right,
Yeah,
sure.
so the packages might not be up to date yet.
Sure.
All right, Climby, you're up.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I think that as far as the transparency goes, I love the transparency. I actually put the slider all the way down so it's the most transparent.
My man.
But yeah, no, I think all the hype that elementary gets, I think Deepin should get, because I see it more as a viable option for new users currently than I do elementary, especially for people coming from Windows, because the Windows workflow is there. And a lot of the same terms are used too. Like when you go to change the theme from dark to light, it's called personalization. It does actually respect icon themes. So if you install like the Oxygen icon theme, it will show up. But the window theme switcher is purely GTK. So I didn't see any way to change Qt themes. So any Qt app you install is just going to be the regular light Breeze Qt theme. And yeah, the Deepin applications, if you want them to be dark, you have to manually change them all to dark, except for the terminal, which is dark by default.
Yeah. Movie player as well, isn't it?
Yeah, movie player as well. Yeah, and the only issue I had, I couldn't test Steam because I always go to NVIDIA's website and download the binary drivers, and I got them running fine. The latest 415 drivers, they work great. I'm actually using a dual monitor setup, and I haven't had any issues with the dual monitor setup. Everything's even using Deepin's monitor settings. I haven't had any issues. But when I tried to install Steam, it told me I had to use the NVIDIA drivers in the repos. I could not use the NVIDIA binary drivers. It just would not let me install Steam at all. I tried the DEB from Steam's website. I tried the Steam package in the repos. It just wouldn't let me unless I uninstalled the binary NVIDIA drivers and install the ones in repos, which are 390 still.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've never had that issue before in any other distro, which is kind of weird. But see, I didn't get to test that. But other than that, everything else, printing works, scanning works. I had to, I installed my my printer drivers from Brother. They work fine. They have Debian packages. So it's my understanding that the Deepin 15.8, it used to be based on Ubuntu, but now it's based on Debian. But they don't actually use Debian repos. They use their own repo, and they also use their own kernel, which is it's a 4.15 based kernel, but they package it themselves. And the Discord package in the repos is out of date.
Yeah.
So
super out of date.
Yeah. So and if you install the dev package from Discord, it'll still try to update Discord to the older package. So I had to do a lock on apt so that it wouldn't touch that package. But Telegram was in there in the repos. Zoom was in the repos. And the software center I didn't have any issues with from what I used. I've noticed that from using the Deepin apps, I did not have any issues at all with any of the Deepin apps. So I think they're doing a good job on that. But yeah, I really like the look of this, and I was also impressed by system resource usage. Booting up, it was using around 500 megabytes of memory on boot, and I've always heard it's been kind of heavy, but they seem to have made a lot of improvements on system performance. So yeah, I think Deepin's headed in the right direction, definitely.
If I remember correctly, I think mine was running at 670 on boot. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, Chicken.
Oh, here we go.
Welcome for the first time in a few weeks.
Yeah, I got a new job, and that's been fun.
Yeah, but before you start, can I just say that your mic sounds superb?
Oh, really?
I don't know what you've done, but it's awesome tonight. Really,
rampant
really
distro hopping, so something's better.
What are you currently on?
Right now, I've got Manjaro XFCE running, but I've been running Deepin on my laptop for quite a while. In regards to Deepin, I really, really like the desktop environment. And as Climby mentioned, their themer, the thing that changes the window decorations, one of the issues with that is that it only does GTK stuff, and a lot of their apps are actually GTK QT mixed. So they use both environments in their apps, which means you can't really theme those. And but I mean, luckily they do look pretty good, I think, for the most part. Icon themes, like you said, worked fine, and performance was pretty good. Now that they have the ability to change opacity and stuff like that, it's a little more flexible. And I feel like one of the issues with it still is that despite them having a really, really good software selection in terms of things you can just get from the actual GUI app itself without having to fiddle around with any commands, it's a huge set. But I think one of their big problems is that they're still in this kind of like halfway Debian type thing. So they've got some things that are super, super old, should not even be there, and then some things that are up to date and fine and working, and it causes a lot of problems.
So were they originally on Ubuntu and switched to Debian? Or?
I don't remember if they were on Ubuntu. Maybe they were at some point.
think
I've
the
only been around
DistroWatch
2
page
years.
said something about Ubuntu.
They might have been there originally. I've only been here for like 2 years, so I have no idea.
Mhm.
I think they
But-
were initially.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a step back for them. It might have helped them become more stable, but I do think it has hindered their ability to package a manageable set of applications.
All right. Got. Did you try it?
Actually, I have, and I'm hoping that my internet connection stays stable enough to remain for the whole show. Sorry about cutting in and out there.
It's okay.
That's Australia for you. I'm a decade behind. However, I did a pure install, and I installed it on a 2004 HP G71 laptop.
Wow.
And it's been running ever since, and I started it last week. I used all of the default settings for the install, and it was effortless. I had very little to do with the install. A couple of things I didn't like was the fact that I couldn't tell it if I wanted to swap drive or not. It was automatic. It was done against my will. In this situation, yeah, swap drive is probably needed. It's only got 4 gigs of RAM in the laptop. So that's okay. I didn't like the way it partitioned out, though. The setup, it's a 320 gig hard drive on the laptop, and it partitioned out with SDA2 is the main drive, a separate partition, which is the partition for root, a partition for home, SDA3, SDA1 became the swap drive. What I found curious is that all the files that you normally find at the beginning of the drive for boot sector and whatnot are moved to the end of the drive, and swap is the very first thing on the drive. So I thought that was very interesting. And then a data disk was created during the setup. So 72 gigabytes was set into an external partition, SDA4, and SDA5 was created for the data disk itself, and 1 megabyte of unallocated space was jammed in there. So I don't understand all of that, the reasoning behind how it was partitioning a very simple, clean hard drive. It just seemed really weird to me the way it was all set up.
Do you know what file systems it was using there? Because I recall in the past they used to actually create like an NTFS file system, which was really weird.
That's what the data disk is. The 72 gigs is NTFS. It's an LBA, and it's in the it's an external partition. It's not even ext4. It's just NTFS.
It is so weird.
So it's just an empty partition sitting there called data disk, and there's nothing on it. It's not even.
And how much is it?
72 gigs.
That's pretty significant.
I'll say.
Wow.
Exactly.
Not being used.
Exactly. And the home partition is 72 gigs, and the root partition is 150.
Whoa.
So there wasn't any key, or there wasn't any ability for me to interrupt and say, let's manually partition out the system during the install. It just did it automatically.
And was this disk formatted from the beginning? Like, was it just one full partition when you started, or?
Yeah, it was a virgin. It was a wiped disk virgin. So, I mean, even though this laptop came with Windows installed, I just wiped it clean for Deepin so that it had the best chance of starting as a fresh install, as pure as possible. So that being said, it's been running fantastic the way it's set up. So I tested a few things, went to the install some programs and from the store and whatnot. And first thing I did is change it from Chinese to international because I don't like the store being default to China. But and I'm sure somebody covered that already. Yeah, so some of the apps in there are actually not open source. There's actually some pay-as-you-go or free to download apps in the store, but then you actually have to pay for them, which I'm not sure if that's, I don't run into that very much in the Linux software manager.
Not anymore.
Yeah, so it is there in Deepin. And I missed a few of the reviews on this. The fact that the control center comes up on the right, I kind of liked that. Everything is there. You can scroll as soon as you open the control center on the right side. You can scroll up and down and find every aspect of the system that you'd be interested in, including the shortcut keys, which everybody wants to find right off the bat. I like the fact Control Alt T opens the terminal right away. Alt F2 opens the terminal in Quake style at the top, so you can go both ways on that. I did like the transparency and the blur of the background. I really like that. What I didn't like in the software manager in Deepin's app store was the fact that you had to scroll all the way down to the bottom to the uninstall feature to find out what's installed.
Oh.
I kind of prefer to go to a button that says installed apps to browse all the apps I have installed and then have an option to uninstall them if I want to. But instead, this just says uninstall. It's very, I don't know, it's doesn't really connect with your brain. That's where all your apps are at that you've got installed. But that's, I guess, just a personal preference thing. I tried out the Deepin image viewer, and this is the only aspect that didn't work in the entire system, and that was to rotate an image 90 degrees left or 90 degrees right. Those controls don't work at all. You click on them all day long, and they won't rotate the image. I thought it was the machine, rebooted a few times, not. Tried reinstalling the image viewer, didn't help. Overall, everything worked. I found the printer and scan utilities for Brother all went in perfectly. Everything was detected properly. I wouldn't have believed it on such an old laptop, and it runs really well. And just to back up you, Rocco, on what you're talking about, it loaded up with about 517 megabits resources being used.
Nice.
That's it. So
that's surprising on the resources, I have to say.
Hey, Rocket.
I don't. Yeah.
Did you see like a mount point in the file manager for that data drive? Like, does it show up in the file manager for you?
And it does, and you actually have to mount it.
Interesting.
Yes.
So it doesn't auto mount.
No, it sits. I could set it up to auto mount, obviously, but it sits there unmounted until you are ready to use it if it's actually intended for you.
So it's not even being used. That's crazy.
All right. Right. So that was kind of, I didn't find that very efficient use of partitioning during the setup. So like I say, if there was a manual intervention we could have, I probably wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But otherwise, really surprised on such an old laptop. That's it right there.
Wow.
And it really is running really well, and I'm really shocked. So I'd have to recommend this as an 8 out of 10 right off the bat.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Well, we always hear about things like, resources and everything, but it's not until you try it. And that's where I think, Chicken, you meant about the VirtualBox reviews, that you really don't know how it's going to run until you put it on hardware like that to see it. So,
yeah, I wouldn't be able to run this on Steam. I mean, Climby mentioned, was it Climby or Chicken? You mentioned Steam. This machine wouldn't be even close to capable of running. So I wouldn't even try testing that. But, I played around with it, tested some a few games, a few apps. Didn't have an issue.
Right.
So I think in conclusion, Solus with the Deepin desktop would be the best thing ever.
Leave my Solus alone.
All right, so Dark One Matt couldn't be here tonight because of real life stuff.
I scared him off.
Yeah, well, more real life work stuff. You know about that, Chicken.
Yeah.
But anyway, he did send his thoughts over Telegram, and he asked me to relay them. So He did mention about they fixed the issues with the updates with the servers. The touchscreen for the Sony Vaio Duo ran and worked perfectly out of the box. So I guess that's a plus for touchscreens. Let's see. The new revamp on the control system, depending on which mode you select for the dock, fashion or efficient, and changing to accommodate that was awesome. The new welcome screen where you can select your theme and your icons and how you want the dock on the first boot is a really nice touch. I think that's like we were talking about last week, like that Captain. I can't remember what that was in, what distribution that was in. The Software Center is still hands down the best looking and designed now that it works. Currently available in Linux. And, well, do you agree with that? Do you guys agree that it's the hands down the best looking Software Center?
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I am
really-
compelled
I really
by
like
higher powers not to.
Yeah. I don't know if
Elementary,
it's
my dear.
better than elementary, but it's close.
Well, I didn't get to run it. And watching Colin's review of it, I thought it was super cool that they had flat packs and they told you it was a flat pack very visibly in the store. So you
That
could
was
not
one
only
of the
choose
things-
them, but
that
you
was-
knew that you were choosing them.
That was one of the things I noticed is when you went into the store and you searched for, let's say, an app like Scribus or Clementine or something like that. Scribus showed up both the normal and the flat pack side by side. It just automatically provided you with both options. I thought that was pretty cool.
Now, Colin, when you did you take notice, like when you install a flat pack, does it say as an installed program that it is a flat pack? Does it show you?
Oh no, I didn't actually install it. I just showed that within the deep install where the flat packs were. It's got an actual flat pack selection. So they are within every category. You'll find flat packs, but there is one selection where you can see all the flat packs on their own. So I didn't actually install any of them though.
But I hear what you're saying there, Rocco, because when you use snaps or flat packs, or if you use both and a deb file or whatever, and you look at your menu and you go, okay, which one's which?
Right.
I mean, and they talk about you can have this great thing of having this version number of this and that version number of that and that, but not if it just says in your memory GIMP, GIMP, or GIMP. just pointless. And the only way you can do it, I think, is by right mouse clicking on it, going to properties, and then seeing where the install directory is from or where the command is running from. And then remembering the next time when you open up that distro 14 days later, okay, was it the flat pack? Was it the first or the third? Or the second?
And of course, that's if that desktop supports the right clicking on the launchers.
Right.
That's very, very true. Yeah.
That makes it even harder.
All right. Well, Matt says the only con was the scaling. Speaking of scaling, Zeb, the scaling was automatically set to 2.0, which is pretty high, I guess, which is just too large. And they only go in increments of 0.25. So the more fractional scaling controls would have been nice.
Mine was scaled at 1.0.
Maybe I guess that depends on the resolution that you're at, or
probably.
What it's supposed to do is it takes into account the resolution you're running at and the size of your screen.
Right,
so your display is supposed to, when it's communicating with the machine, it can more or less tell it that, hey, this is like a 27-inch panel or whatnot. Not all devices will actually have that information legible to the system.
And that
And I
might be
think-
where it's an issue for me because I've got 3 different sizes
that's
of my
tough.
4 screens. So yeah, that would Plasma handles it fantastically.
Yeah.
But
Except when you uninstall VLC. Then it doesn't handle it
Oh,
fantastic.
God.
Deepin has to
Don't
fiddle with
even.
both GTK and QT, so I think that might have something to do with it.
Well, the weird thing for me is that for some reason in my setup, every desktop environment keeps it at 1.0, which is the way I like it, except for KD Plasma. It sets it higher, and then I have to go back and change it to 96 pixels per inch.
And what resolution do you run?
It's 2560 by 1440 on a 24-inch monitor.
That's
Well, then
pretty
it should
snazzy.
be at 1.0,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it should be.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be scaled if it's at
Yeah.
that resolution. Yeah, I'm finding all this stuff out now, so The stream almost didn't start tonight because of that whole scaling issue, and so I ended up getting a 4K monitor, and it's beautiful and it's awesome. And the sad part about it is, I boot into Windows to get that straightened out with the scaling, and it immediately scales everything to the way it should be. I boot into Linux, and the first time I booted into this Arch Plasma install, everything was just completely messed up. I mean, boxes were off and disformed and everything else. So I rebooted and gave it a chance to think a little bit, and then it properly scaled, I guess, the way it was supposed to. And I messed around with some of the settings to, like, there were some programs like Chrome that didn't scale, and it was really, really tiny. And then OBS, for some reason, has some issues with, I guess, 4K, or at least the resolution that I'm running, because the preview windows were off. It wouldn't allow me to resize the Zoom windows. I didn't even think I was going to be able to make the stream tonight.
I know how to fix this, by the way. OBS does it in a weird way where it's two separate settings that are split apart, and one controls like the base resolution of the capture, and one controls the actual like effective resolution of the display it's capturing.
We need to talk after the stream.
I was just going to suggest Chicken will know how to fix your ones. Yeah.
So PZ, my good friend, had a great idea. He said, turn the resolution down to 1440, turn the scaling down to 1.0 just for the stream. Did that, rebooted, and OBS is working at the moment, and we were able to do the stream. So this stream is brought to you by PZ as well.
1440p is a really good sweet spot.
It is. Lattice Tech Tips actually did a video a couple weeks ago on that. They were comparing gaming at 1080p, 4K, and 1440, and found that you get the best balance of quality and frame rate at 1440. If you go to 4K, your frame rates drop. You go to 10K, your frame rates peak, but you don't get good quality.
Well, I play Battlefield 5, and that is, when I was running at 1080p, I don't know the FPS because I didn't check the FPS, but I know at that time it was over 60 because I had pulled it up once, and it just, I didn't see it in after that. Yeah. When I played it today, after I took the monitor, because that was like one of the tests I had to do with the monitors, play Battlefield, right? So I played it today, and I was probably getting like 35 to 40 FPS at the 4K. So, I should turn the settings down, but who wants to do that?
That's the whole point of getting a 4K monitor. But you're right, it can struggle. I mean, you've got the 1080. Have you got the 1080 or the 1080 Ti?
1080.
1080. Yeah, I've only got the 1070 Ti, and I can't do anything 4K. The frame rate just drops ridiculously, and I don't like doing 1440 on YouTube streams because they don't allow me to have my minimal delay. When I'm on 1080p and I've got people in chat and I'm telling them what's just happened, there's about a 4-second delay before the guys in YouTube see it and can respond. If I go to 1440, it's about a 40-second delay.
Ooh, that's a big dip.
YouTube won't let me choose the absolute lowest, almost like real time, if you're not on 1080p, which is frustrating.
So as far as the performance goes, the 1080, it's not going to really push 4K 60 very much in high-end games like that. You will need like a 1080 Ti or higher.
Or a Vega 64.
Yeah, or a 1080 Ti or higher.
Team Green.
1080 Ti.
2070 and 2080.
Oh, I just wanted to let you know, Rocco, I should have said this earlier. I noticed when I was listening to the YouTube chat, I could only hear you in my right ear. I'm not sure if you saw that.
No. Why is that? Why would that be?
It's his system because I hear Ian.
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Okay, then it's just me apparently.
No, I'm pretty sure I've seen somebody else say the same thing.
It was just on the YouTube playback. I can hear
Yeah.
you fine here, but on the YouTube playback itself, I could only hear you on the right.
Oh,
Can
Yeah,
anybody else
Tony
check
in
that?
chat said that as well. Tony Simmons, I think.
Okay, I wasn't
Said
sure
that
if
in
you'd
chat.
seen that.
No,
Oh,
I did
yeah,
not
yeah.
see
I
that.
get the same thing on the YouTube.
Why? I don't know why that would be.
I don't know why I didn't say anything earlier. I just let you keep talking.
Yeah, it's the same for
Thanks.
me too, actually.
You can't blame this on the skating.
It's not the 4K monitor that's affecting the sound,
must
is it?
not be, no. Oh, by the way, happy birthday, Zeb. I know I'm a little late.
You're a little
Thank
late,
you.
dude.
I called you a
Thank you.
pyramid scheme earlier.
That was sorry about this, but I wet myself when I read that earlier. I thought, oh, only Sticking could come up with a comment like that. Brilliant. Birthdays
Well-
as a pyramid scheme. I love it.
That brings me to we tried Deep In this week, and I was talking to a couple of you guys last week about GNOME and the gaming issue, and it seems to me that right now a lot of the main distros, at least for me, I am personally having issues with, and that's why I'm running KDE, because with me, KDE is a love-hate relationship. But that's why I'm on it, because every single time I try something like GNOME, XFCE, Budgie, there's always one thing that is the deal breaker. And GNOME, it would be, the system tray, and yeah, you can get around that with extensions, but obviously that's not going to last forever. But the biggest deal breaker with GNOME is when I game, it seems to want to, and I don't know if it's an NVIDIA thing or if it's a GNOME thing, but the game wants to shift down on the monitor an inch. So then when you try to click a button,
It's
you
not an
have to-
NVIDIA thing. I had that. I was never sure what the crap you were talking about. So I was like, this makes no sense.
So I'm not crazy,
And
or
then I
what?
had it, yes, and it sits down below. The only way I could solve that was by opening up the overview and dragging it into another workspace and then clicking on it.
Well, I never thought to do that, but I don't think you should. That to me is a deal breaker.
Yeah, it's not good.
So, but like I said, all of these other ones, like Budgie has some issues. Like Budgie was actually one of the other ones that had the invisible wall on the other monitor.
Mhm.
So, excuse me. So my question is, are we getting to the point where we're going forwards or backwards in the desktop environments? Or is it just me?
I think they have little cycles. I've noticed this with Linux. I've been with it since 2009, and the first few years were awful. Then 2014 come along, and it seemed to be like the golden years of 1404. And then 1604 came along, and then you had one or two problems. 1804 came along, and I thought, yes, great, it's brilliant, because all the betas went fantastic. And then they went live, and it was like, really? As you say, I think it just has little peaks and troughs where sometimes they just. I really wish that sometimes I think that's like what Simon is now doing with LXDE. I don't think other than he's trying to get what's that thing, Wayland, that will never be around, but he's trying to get it to work. I think distros sometimes just need to concentrate on, let's consolidate what we've got and really iron out all the bugs before we bring in anything new and major. And I know that goes against some of the ethos, because we all love tweaking and fiddling, but sometimes you just want reliability. And although I can never run it, I think that's where things like I can't even think of the name of it now.
Elementary OS.
Score. No, I just don't get on with Elementary. I mean, the whole thing is great. I just don't like not being able to tweak it as much as you can. But I understand why it's there. But I can understand now why some people run OpenSUSE and Debian and the like, because it is a wonderfully stable environment, and you haven't got to worry about messing around. And I guess that's why I gave up distro hopping, because it's just too much effort to keep setting it all up.
Even the rolling system is pretty remarkably stable, which is
Yeah, I'm enjoying Tumbleweed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I too enjoy Tumbleweed on a daily basis. I don't have any problems. I don't.
Yep.
Yes, but you don't want to distro hop Adam because of the scaling issue.
Yeah, because OpenSUSE has done it right, so I don't want to. Nobody else is probably going to do it right, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
That's the
Look what I
power of
did to you.
open QA.
Well, an update on last week with the whole Arch thing and PayMac not being able to be uninstalled. I took a lot of things from everybody that what they said, and Dave helped me out a little bit. A couple others helped me out a little bit. Silent Robot helped me out one afternoon, I guess it was, or was it the next day? And we did end up getting it installed, and I can't exactly remember how we got it installed, but we ended up, it took multiple commands to try, and nothing was working until finally, what I did was I copied the error that I was getting to him, and he copied it, he put it in a text file and did all kinds of stuff to it, and sent it back to me, and I ran it, and it ended up deleting everything that PayMac was. So it eventually got off the system. So that's solved. You can all rest easy now.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Right. All right. Any suggestions on next week's distro?
Ooh.
Well, again, Matt Darkone can't be here, but he was talking about, and I think I've heard it mentioned a number of times before, not on this particular show, but as a distro, and he was on about Enso, ENSO.
Yes, he did mention that. What do you think?
I feel like it's torture for any of you guys who didn't get along with elementary.
Is it that good? Is it?
So then Climby would love it.
It's just so good.
Right, Climby?
Yeah. I was really hoping that wouldn't get picked this week. I just had a bad feeling.
So it sounds like you know about it, Shikin. So what is Enso? What's its ethos? What's the desktop?
Well, Dark One had enlightened me, pun intended. With a nice little...
They took Ubuntu and they ruined it. Pantheon.
Yeah. More or less it.
This sounds like a nightmare waiting to happen.
I don't know. I think that might be a good thing if you took XFCE and melded it together with Pantheon. I think that might be a good thing.
There's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things.
I feel like it would just be better to put Plank in Ubuntu.
Why don't we try it out and see how they did?
Well, I mean, that's an options. Does anybody else have anything else they want to try?
Yeah,
let's use free BSD.
A favorite. So go on, Colin.
Voyager Gnome was an interesting one.
Exactly what I was just going to say. You read my mind. Because Voyager XFCE on Ubuntu was fantastic, but they've gone Debian on us.
They've gone Debian on us.
Why?
Like, that's such a terrible thing. Oh my gosh, they went Debian.
What's wrong with Debian? For me, other than MX, Debian is just so much more awkward to work with than Ubuntu, I think.
But that's because MX makes it easy. And
Exactly.
they see what most people want and need, and they go out of their way. Dolphin goes out of his way, and the guys behind MX to make little apps or put this in there so you can use it easy. And that's the only reason why MX is good.
I like the way Voyager Gnome have sort of tweaked their Gnome desktop. It's quite interesting, actually. That would be interesting for people to take a look at. I've only looked at it on the live, so I haven't really run it yet. I think I downloaded it, but I haven't installed it.
You're slipping, Colin. You usually have this stuff installed before we say
I
we're going to try
haven't been
it.
home, Rocco.
He's been on a voyage.
Excuses.
I've been on a voyage, yeah. I went for a Voyager.
I was going to mention that Calculate Linux as an LXQT edition.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. Climate, we don't have a year, dude. We have a week.
It's Gentoo, but with the graphical installer, you'll be fine.
Gentoo.
Nasty. One of these days, I'm going to get you guys to try NixOS.
No. Negative on that.
Please no.
All right, so Voyager or Enso?
Gonna make me choose between Gnome and Pantheon.
That's not a good
Two of
choice.
his favorite.
I'm the gnome user saying. Actually,
Yeah, Voyager sounds pretty good.
Oh my gosh.
They're both
Yeah.
I haven't heard of, so great.
All right, so so let's narrow this down. Does anybody have any other suggestions besides them two that we should think about?
Somebody in chat said the new Bunsen Labs.
I heard about that.
Silent
there's a new
Robot.
one.
Apparently so.
Heard about that. Don't know what it is.
All right.
It's Debian with OpenBox.
What's your vote, PZ? Voyager or I don't have nothing to write this down.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Voyager this time.
Voyager. Okay. Wendy, what would you rather try? Voyager, Gnome, or Enso?
I have no idea. I missed your. I came back as everybody was laughing.
Okay, so Enso would be a mix between XFC and Pantheon, and Voyager is a Gnome edition of something.
Well, the mix on Ansel sounds very interesting to try.
I think it does too myself.
We got Tony Simmons in the chat who's saying, "Don't do it." He's running it and it's full of issues.
Which one?
Bunsen Labs or no?
No, Enzo.
Oh, Enzo.
I think he's referring to Enzo. I think. Do it.
It's gonna be another busy week for me,
Voyagers.
So
Darth Palpatine.
pick whatever you want. I probably won't get to it again.
That's a no choice there. All right, so I'm picking Enso. So we got 1 and 1. Nate, what would you rather try?
And so sounds more interesting. If it's going to be like a dumpster fire, that sounds even better.
All right, Colin, what would you rather try?
Well, it looks like the theme today is we're going for the challenges, so let's go for Enzo.
All right. Hey, while we're doing this, you guys in chat can put your vote in either Voyager or Enso.
Just make it harder for yourself, Rocco.
Dave,
You're muted.
you're
Dave.
muted, brother.
Dave, you're muted. There you go.
Since I'm still going to be arguing out with Deepin over my EFI partitions, I think I'd go for the easier Voyager.
Voyager. Okay. Adam, is there a favorite choice of yours?
I'm gonna go with Voyager. Enso sounds like a mess. So
Isn't that why we should try it?
No.
Isn't that why we have to try it?
I don't, sometimes like you see food and it just doesn't look good, and they're like, "Oh, just try it," but you just know what's gonna happen. It's kind of that idea.
Yes, but why? But you would never really try like chocolate and bacon at the same time, but you might like it.
Yeah.
This is more like squid eggs.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Thomas, what would you rather try? The dumpster fire or the Voyager?
I feel like ragging on a distro next week, so let's do the dumpster fire of
Peter, are you going to
a great week already, aren't we?
right?
Oh yeah. Like,
Peter,
I had
are
a
you
great
going
week last week this week already, so let's just make it even better.
Are you going to dive into this with us, Peter?
Yeah, I'm gonna try that.
All right, what do you want to try? Either Enso or Voyager?
I want to try Ansel.
All right. Climby?
Voyager.
Chicken.
Come along and ride on a fantastic voyage.
Scott, you're the deciding vote, Scott.
Well,
Pick wisely.
I don't know if I can do the decision for you guys. I actually have to pull together about 4 machines and build something that I can now use as my test bed.
Well, if you look
but if I'm successful, I'm going to go with Voyager.
Yes.
Yes, but see here, look,
I'm
Dave.
doing it though anyway, just for the dumpster fire.
Dave, you'll agree with me here because Tony says if you like pain, then Enso is for you. And Linux is supposed to be painful, so we should try Enso, don't you think?
Well, why don't we have?
Very true. Very true.
Look, we're split 50-50. So those that want to do Enzo, and the others of us will do Voyager. And then you'll have two different types of review. You might end up with all pain, as everybody hates Voyager Gnome, but you might then end up with, oh my God, I wish I'd done Voyager, and all us going, yeah, actually, it's pretty damn good.
Yeah,
But I feel like I'll be missing out no matter which one I pick.
No, if Enzo's that bad, I'll just drink.
Uh-oh, Craig Lilly says Enzo. See? I'm just
Uh-oh.
saying. No, I guess we could do either one. Whichever one you guys want to try this week, you try it. Like I said, it's Peter. It's not mandatory, so none of this
There's
is.
the Enzo link, and there's the Voyager link.
So whichever one you want to try this week, Enzo or Voyager, go for it, and then we'll decide. And then we'll talk about it next week.
Yes.
Sounds good.
And Michael, welcome.
Hello, guys.
How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, just fine. Just coming home from work, so yeah.
Hi,
A little
Michael.
bit late to the party.
That's all right. Do
Yeah.
you have any? Did you try Deep In? You have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I did. And it installed fine. I had no problem, and if everything just worked fine. Yeah, I tried some of the original application they have in the store, and everything just worked fine. I had some issues with the theming, when you were using other applications. It didn't seem consistent. It looked out of place somehow. I don't know. But the Deep In desktop was nice. This was good looking, working fine. For me, it was very quick, responsive, and all my hardware installed fine. So I had no real issues with it. It's a shame they locked down the environment so hard. I can see why they do it, but it was a little bit. It held me back when working with it. But it was fine otherwise. It worked just fine. I had no problems with it. So yeah, for those who, I guess, don't like to tinker with the desktop and just.
Am I not in the right
as
chat
is.
that I didn't get the links?
You just look at the YouTube chat. I can put them back in here if you
Oh,
want.
the YouTube chat. Oh, the YouTube chat. Okay. I'm a little discombobulated, I guess.
I'll put it. There you go. Zippity got it.
So again, I have to bring this fact up here that there's a lot of people that would say they would run Deep In, and I don't understand why when probably the same people would not run GNOME because of it being locked down. So can somebody help me out with that? Is it
Because
that it's
pretty and
beautiful
better
or what?
than everything else, and so
I mean, like people
Well-
wouldn't run GNOME because of that fact.
I
You
think a
still
lot
have
of it.
themes with GNOME. You still have themes. You still have choices.
Yeah, you do. True. They're both got choices, but in different ways. I mean, Deep In has choices on the menus and all that sort of thing, but GNOME has other choices with themes and all that, and you can easily change the GNOME shell theme, the GTK themes. So yeah, and like I think Chicken said, they've got a mixture of Qt and GTK. That's why you cannot change icons. Changing icons is fine, but it's when it comes to changing the themes. I don't even know why they have a theme option in their control center if they don't want people to change it. They should take it away and just run it the way it is.
I think the issue, it wasn't that they didn't want people to change it. I think at one point you were able to effectively do it, but because they're using Qt inside of their applications, it's not that it can't theme, it's just that it can't theme those particular applications.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
They need to
That's a
have
bit rough.
a way to theme Qt apps.
Yeah, that would be really good.
I have one major reason why I like Deep In better, and that's the it doesn't have an activities button. I don't have to go activities to get to everywhere. I got a nice bar on the bottom. I got everything down there. So at least it's comfortable for me as a someone who still has the scars of Windows.
So is part of it that you can change some of the things about Deep In? Like, okay, for example, it comes with a full screen menu, kind of like GNOME. but you can change it to a regular menu.
Yep.
Little things like that throughout the system. Is that
Right.
what makes it more runnable
It
by
makes it more
most
palatable.
people?
'Cause I don't like the full screen menu. Those irritate me to no end.
I've noticed a combination of things. I have a few friends that run Deepin, and they each run it in a slightly different way. But what I found with them is that they're longtime Windows users, and Deepin was just pick up and go for them. And then I have another friend who is a longtime Mac user, and it was a similar story. So with Deepin, you can set it up within a few clicks to be almost identical to Windows in terms of just how it looks. Maybe not like the window controls and stuff, but where things are, it should be pretty familiar. And it's already kind of dock focused to begin with. So if you're coming over from Mac, you have that kind of familiar environment. You've already got like a software center type thing mixed into it. But just the desktop itself, I think a lot just has to do with just the comfort of it.
But for me, it's not Linux. For me, is
I would agree to all those
Linux distros.
It's just
It's
more
about
comfortable.
choices.
It's more familiar. It has what I would expect from a desktop interface.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I would. What I was saying is that for me, Linux is about choices, and when you start to lock down things, then for me it's a problem, because that's one of the reasons why I am here, because I want to have choices and the freedom to do what I want to do with my system. And when developers start to lock down things and don't give you choices anymore, then everything goes sideways for me. It's a big no-no. And so, sure, it was good looking, it was nice, it was easy to use, and it worked. But I don't know, it feels wrong when you are giving me rules to follow and not giving me the freedom to do what I want to do with my system. That's where the problem comes from me. It's I don't know, it's just I'm not going to deal with it. I want to do it the way I want to do it.
The other thing is, Rocco, they have an end user license agreement as well in Deepin. When you install it, you have to accept the end user license agreement. And then inside again, once you install, you've got WPS, which also has an end user license agreement. So, I mean, do we really, I mentioned that in my video, do we really need those things in Linux at the end of the day?
I think it's not inherently bad to have a EULA. In fact, most of the things you use probably have some form of EULA one way or another. OpenSUSE presents you with a EULA of sorts when you first install it as well. The general gist of it is basically, this is our license, this is the licensing of our software, and in order to use it, you kind of need to understand, not that anyone reads it, of course, but what it entails. But I don't know if it's inherently a bad thing. I think Linux can kind of be whatever it wants to be. And I don't know. I don't think incorporating things like EULAs is necessarily bad, because it's not happening everywhere, and it's not inhibiting the system from working the way it should, at least I think. But I do think presentation has a lot to do with it as well.
I think a lot of those EULAs that are there are because they don't understand, the people issuing them don't understand their uses, and they're just kind of using it as a catch to cover all the bases, as a just in case for who knows whatever reason. It doesn't, like you said, Chicken, it doesn't really affect the usability of the OS or the software. It doesn't affect its functionality. And you abusing it or using it the way you want to is not an issue either. So it's just it's taking up space is basically what it is, just in case it's needed in the future for some odd reason.
In case you build a nuke with it, according to OpenSUSE, you're not allowed to do that.
Exactly.
Any reason why? Or
Nate, did you hear that? Nate, calling Nate. Adam, did you hear that? You're running SUSE.
Well, I'll be honest.
I know
with you,
that-
man, I've been reading Reddit. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that's the reason they don't want you building a nuke with it is it had bad things happen, I guess, in Ukraine. I don't know, some town there got kind of messed up. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Some kid
So
building.
don't be building a
in
nuke with it, Nate.
By the way, speaking of choice, since Michael brought it up, anybody that's going to be testing out the Voyager, if you scroll down the website there, it is amazing the number of choices. They've got gamer version, XFCE version. They show you which version of kernel that you want to start with, whether it's
but
Debian Stretch.
the Voyager we're going with is specifically the GNOME one because all of the others are XFCE.
Right. That's right. The GNOME shell, and that'll carry the kernel 4.18. Yep.
And that's based on Ubuntu, Zeb. The GNOME
No,
one.
that's based on GNOME. Sorry,
Is
that's based
anyone
on
else-
Debian.
It says GNOME shell Ubuntu here on
No,
the website.
the new GNOME, so the new Voyager, he's moved over to Debian.
Is it? All right.
So it'll be the Voyager GE GNOME shell.
No, it says GE Voyager based on Ubuntu 18.10 will cycle 9 months of support and updates. So it should be Ubuntu 18.10.
Is anyone a bit disappointed in the quality of the website?
Well, yes. But okay, so that's an example that I want to bring up here about.
It's a French website.
There were a couple people that mentioned about last week about Antec's website. And, there was a discussion on whether that has any reflection on the distro itself, how good the website is. And I want to say, I don't know where I stand on that. Like, I won't I won't not use a distro or not try a distro based on the website. How does everybody else feel?
It's a cookie cutter website. I mean, I don't think that's what's important. The fact is that they've separated out into something easy to see and read. As far as looking at the different presentations, yeah, you know what? It's not a Las Vegas website, but
I don't think it has to be, really.
Yeah, I can see all the information I need to see. Kernel 4.18 supports UEFI.
Come on over to intro.
What I found particularly concerning with some of the chat that was being said is because a website is hosted on a particular type of server, the person creating the OS doesn't care about the OS. What are you rattling on about? Not everybody can afford $5 a month for a hosting site. So you go with what's free. And just because you've had experience or you know of the general feel for a particular hosting site is sketchy, doesn't make that distro sketchy and the developer any less concerned about his OS.
For me,
you're going, Chicken.
The stance I kind of took on it wasn't that the site itself affected the quality of the distro, but it didn't do it justice in terms of where you're getting it from.
But what does it matter where you're getting it from?
Well, it does matter if there is, because there's always a risk associated with using your computer to connect to any server. Historically, that particular web service is commonly used for malware. So he could have picked anything else. I mean, Weebly would have probably been fine. Wix would have probably been fine. It would have been the same type of situation. The issue is that particular hosting service has a tendency to be quite unsafe.
I'm just going to share my experience with my website for MyOS really quick. When MyOS was first released, I had a Wix website, and I hated the thing. But the reason I used Wix is because it's easy to set up.
Yep.
I hated it because Wix websites are notoriously slow. But I could do it for free.
Yeah.
I have a friend who is a web developer, and he convinced me and helped me move away from Wix. I now have free web hosting. My website is faster than it has ever been before. It looks good on anything from the oldest mobile phone all the way up to a 2K screen. You get on 4K screens and stuff starts looking weird because reasons, but it looks good. And I control the source code. I am capable of going in and editing my website on my own, and I pay nothing for any of it. It's free from the bottom to the top. And it took me a long time to get here, and it's still a work in progress. And as a developer for an OS, I feel like my website is going to be representative of my OS. And if you were to look at my OS versus my website, you can see neither one is completely fleshed out, but neither one is terrible either. Like,
That's good.
Like they both have their quirks, but they're both, you can figure out both how to use and what the purpose is and all that, and it does what it needs to do well. Like, you can see that in both, and they're both works in progress, and that's how everything is. So I wouldn't be surprised if the developer of what this OS you're talking about would eventually move to a free web hosting service similar to what I'm using, because at some point I eventually did. It didn't take long. And making your own website using something such as Mobilize, which you need no coding experience to use, is extremely easy. And then you can just self-host somehow or do free hosting. So,
and speaking of free, I'm just going to sidetrack this just a little bit, Thomas. But I think I'm going to take a pass on the Voyager after I scroll over to the download page to download it, and the statement about support says 9 months of free security and maintenance updates guaranteed. I don't think 9 months is going to be enough for me.
Come on over to Enzo.
Well, that's because it's based on Ubuntu
1810.
1810.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why.
And now, which one was going to be supported for 10 years? Was that 1804?
1804.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
If you pay for the second 5 years.
So
I
hang
didn't
on.
hear about that.
Right.
Yeah. What? So you're saying that Ubuntu 1804 is not 10 years for everybody?
No, it's 5 for everybody
corporate.
and 10 for the corporate that are paying for the ESR.
That's
that's
not
fair.
what everyone's been saying, though. That's crazy.
That is what Mark said. If you actually go back and actually listen to his presentation, he is specific about it being for their corporate clients.
I love to play telephone.
It makes sense though, because they got to make money somehow. You can't. It's not free to develop an operating system when you have that many people working on it, and doing something like that. At least they can make money, and by having 10-year support, that it does help appease your corporate sponsors a little bit more
because they need that time. They need to write that into their plans and their budgeting for equipment. So.
And it's better than most. Not a lot of distros have that kind of support.
Right. And that's understandable. It's just 9 months is not going to be long enough for me. It's not going to
satisfy. Then don't go on 1810 at all.
Yes, stick to all of the O4s, yeah. Or to the,
but I had not heard that. I mean, I didn't check into it. I didn't go reading major stories about it. All I heard, all the news blurbs saying, "Oh, Ubuntu 10 years," so it's really only 5. We got ripped.
We're only installing Voyager for a week. We're only installing
I know.
it for a week.
We don't ever need support.
I think they're just making official because, I mean, what is it? Even 1404 is still getting supported, for companies that are paying for it. So I think they're just making it, an official thing rather than just on a case-by-case basis. They're now making it official that any corporate, policy can handle it now instead of having to beg for it.
But also setting a hard limit as opposed to just we'll also support it as long as you keep paying kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
And there's Joe.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
All right. How are you?
Pretty good.
Grandkids were over, so I thought it was safest not to come on until they're gone next door.
It's all good.
So I hope this Voyager download is done before the next biddle.
Did you try Deep In this week, Joe?
Not on bare metal. I did it in the VM. and I spent some time on it. I'm not going to take it out of here because I want to spend a little more time on it. I kind of agree with that. You know, in one breath, I get what Chicken's saying about the EULAs, but I still don't like them. You know, I do think that what I saw of this, or what I did with this system a little bit, you know, it seemed very polished and clean and responsive even in a VM. So I actually will like to try it on bare metal here eventually. Here, I just didn't get a chance to put it on my test laptop. I get, you know, it's funny that the comment was made about the full screen of icons, you know, like look no mission stuff, and that didn't bother me. I actually, and matter of fact, the little bit I played with it, I thought there were options for whether you use that or not in it too.
Yep.
It didn't sound like something you had to do, so I thought that was kind of a nice feature. You know, it was something that you weren't forced to do, or no, you don't have a choice. But like I said, it seemed very responsive, very clean, very polished. The one thing I didn't spend time doing, which I'm sure there's got to be settings in there, is it's not horrible, but I don't like boot up music, you know, so something as simple as that, to turn that off and things like that. So I need to spend more time on it to be a fair go over of it. But my initial look of it, I didn't think it was horrible. But is it something that, matter of fact, I did Arco Linux. So, because I know it was mentioned last week, and I always did like Arco Linux, so I was curious to see how that would look. So that's why I do want to spend more time on it.
Now, have you tried the other deep ins, any other deep ins, to see a difference between what Arco does? The deep in, do they customize it at all, do you think, or?
Did I spend any more time on other ones, you said? Is that what you?
Yeah, have you seen other ones to say whether Arco does any changes to deep in?
It's been a long time since I was on a different flavor, and honestly, I don't recall which one it was. I remember whatever one it was had this side dock that came out, and it looked really kind of cool and stuff, but I don't remember. It's been so long. So that was the other thing that I was going to say, is actually I would like to look at some other flavors with it just to compare, because I was the one that really pushed for this distro, and I still, you know, want to give it a fair shot on bare metal, because we always say that's the best test of a distro. But I was very impressed with how it ran in the VM too. I mean, it boots up really quick, and I do like the login screen down, and I mean, so I just didn't get enough fair time to spend on it like I wanted to. But at a look, I think it's nice. I just do have my concerns. You know, I get where you want to cover bases with rules or EULAs or things like that you don't want to build a nuke with it. I mean, that's common sense. I don't care what you do. I mean, bottom line, you know, I'm worried that if we start going off into a direction of everybody starting to lay rules out for things, and you need rules to a point, but not these EULAs, because then you're starting to eventually turn into Microsoft or Apple. You know, eventually they get down to that path. And maybe that's not a fair synopsis, but that's the way I feel, because if it starts with one, then it's going to start with that, you know, and the snowball effect. And I don't want to get away from the premise of what Linux is all about, you know, and that freedoms, because if you start tying hands and putting rules that are going to limit you on things, I mean, hopefully people have enough common sense to not go out and put some, you know, malicious software together with it. I mean, obviously there was, I don't know if you saw the story this week, there was some kind of a malware that was specifically designed to attack Linux. And there are patches supposed to be out there. I do believe some have already come down, but it was designed to go through the, what was it, Clam AV and that kind of stuff, and disable it and all that. So it was supposedly origin, I thought they said was Russia. I don't know if that was proved, but so the point is when, you know, I'm still suspicious of, that's the only thing about Deepin, I think, especially that's why I told you last week, I specifically would not look at the Chinese version, is because I still have my concerns, you know,
right,
with their reach into our systems. But as far as the system itself, from what years ago, what I remember, and now it just seemed just as polished now as it did then. And I think it's probably was one of the more polished systems out there. I don't know. I didn't get to hear what everybody else said, but I think it's nice. I mean, you know, for the time I had with it.
Incidentally, any raise of hands for how many people run Clam AV?
I had it on there for a while, but now I don't.
I have it installed, but it's not running continuously.
No, not running.
Do we?
Yeah,
I
have
mean,
it installed too, but I'm actually doing a virus scan right this second.
you're doing a virus scan while you're on a live stream. Really, Thomas?
I actually just started. I hadn't heard about that malware thing that he'd mentioned, so I'm scanning my system just to be sure.
Yeah.
So-
well, that if you're scanning with Clam, if you read what the story was on it, and I could try to look it up, because I did post it through my Facebook page. I'll try to look it up and put the link in here before we end tonight, so you can look at it. But the idea of if you had it, it was going to disable that and potentially any other antivirus that you would have on there anyway. There was one that I think Battery talked about that is a bit. What is it? BitLocker, not BitLocker. BitLocker's Microsoft.
Was there a Bitcoin miner
Bitdefender?
thing?
It's a Bitcoin miner, yeah, is what it was. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you want to know that you've got it, Thomas, don't waste your time with Clam AV. Just open up HTOP and everything will be sitting at 100% because it's mining in the background.
Yeah, then I'm probably perfectly fine, because looking at my CPU usage, I'm 54 right now, but that's only because I'm running a CPU or a Word antivirus scan. That's it.
Joe, you mentioned the boot up music and whatnot, and I think you have a good point there as well. Like, I really like boot up music. I think it sounds really good in Deepin, but not only is it ridiculously loud by default, it's also not toggleable from what I've seen, which is really weird.
Yeah,
that caught me out.
It's long. It seems like it's longer than normal.
It is. It's like a full tune.
Well, like Plasma has boot up sounds, but they're not on by default. So you can go in and toggle them if you want. And they actually sound pretty nice.
Oh, yeah.
But you just got to toggle them if you want them. So.
Does anybody remember the Ubuntu boot up sounds? It was like the drums and xylophone and stuff.
Oh, I
my
love
God.
that.
Yeah.
No, it was so horrible.
I used to love that sound so much. I don't know why. It just brings me back, man. Just when did they stop that?
So Plasma has a boot up sound?
Yep.
Huh.
If you go into the system settings, it's in there.
You can turn them on.
But it's not on by default. I end up
No.
turning on my computer quite often when other people are still asleep. And so if I was to do that at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm awake and decide I'm going to get some work done, that would not be.
Definitely do that with Deepin because it will wake up the neighbors either side of the
Yep.
I actually make the most noise in the middle of the night because my mom can't actually hear. So that's the only time I can actually like make videos and do stuff is like at night.
I got up 4:30 in the morning for work, and I turned on the Deepin one, and forgot that I had my headphone in my other computer, and the bloody thing it echoed through the home.
That's because you don't have the mattress, Colin. You lost the mattress.
But quickly going back to that Ubuntu 10 years thing, yes, I have just found it's going to cost you $150 a year and a minimum of 50 computers.
That's not too bad for 150 computers plus.
Not bad at all.
I don't know whether that was $150 per computer.
I would hope
with a
not.
minimum, with
I
a
would
minimum
hope
of 50.
That's a
but-
big cost
but
at that point.
That's shocking because none of the headlines, none of the main descriptions say that this is enterprise only and a paid for service. The whole splash was, yippee, Ubuntu goes 10 years.
Funny
Shocking
how they
clickbait.
do that. Hmm.
Marketing.
That's really bad, actually.
That's atrocious.
Yeah.
Not really.
Why?
Yeah, it is.
I think it's reasonable for them to like that. That means they'd be if they were doing it for everyone, they'd be maintaining 4 different versions of LTS as they.
I've got no problem with them doing 10 years only for enterprise.
Oh, it's the marketing people of like
That's not
Right.
what they said.
The
They
market.
just
It's the media
splashed
people that
everywhere with
clogged it up.
Ubuntu 1804 gets 10 years support.
The problem is that the keynote did actually.
Zeb, who's speaking?
How dare you?
What?
Yeah.
Hi, Michael.
Hi. How are you doing?
Good. Anyway, go ahead.
The keynote does actually have him say the enterprise stuff, but the blog posts and stuff like that didn't mention that part.
Yeah, all it was Ubuntu gets 10-year support.
Yeah,
That's all you heard.
Woohoo! Rocco, was Bitdefender was the one that Spatry was talking about with the better one they have for it. I'll drop that link in there as well too.
I think
Bitdefender for Linux?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only three that I know about are ClamAV, Bitdefender, and I think it's called Sophos.
Sophos or something, yeah.
Sophos.
There's also Komodo Linux, but Komodo Linux doesn't really work too well.
Sopra.
I didn't realize Bitdefender offered a Linux version.
EST offers a Linux version as well.
I think it's at a
And
Avast.
Really?
He does as well.
Yeah.
And
This has got to be newer stuff, like newer offerings, because I don't
No,
remember
it's
them.
pretty much all. Hey, check out this operating system or no, antivirus thing that we're offering to scan Windows viruses.
What really
Yeah.
what really confuses me is that like it's got to be a lot more difficult to have an effective antivirus for something like Linux just because of the massive amount of differences between just general distros in terms of where they put things, how they put them there, whether it's what kind of security system is running on the back end, because you've got like SE Linux, you've got AppArmor. You've got systems that don't implement either, apparently. I don't know. It doesn't seem like any of these are going to be particularly useful.
Well, I don't know. The question is, okay, and I asked everybody, does anybody use ClamAV? Does anybody feel the need to run an antivirus while they're running a Linux distro?
Oh, I never have.
I don't even use one when I use Windows, if I'm honest.
The only time you might want to is if you are supporting any of your friends and family who use Windows, and they send you a file to say, look, I can't get this one started. This is giving me grief. You could then scan it and say, look, I don't know where you got it from. Don't use it. It's got a virus.
Right.
I'm getting to the point where I'm going to put my in-laws, because they use Linux, but they're using the Chrome browser. And so every once in a while, I get these panicked calls because they've had that stupid full screen pop-up, and they're telling me that their Windows is broken. Like, it's okay. You don't have Windows. You're fine. I'm putting them on Firefox, and I'm putting the ad blocker on because I'm done with these.
Ad block on Chrome too.
Yeah.
So you have the whole Chrome. The Chrome itself
Firefox
is virus.
Is easier.
So
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's happened to anybody else, but I announced that I was going Firefox. I think it was on the week before last, Destination Linux.
Yep.
And it lasted a week, and then it started blowing up on me. And every time I opened it up, it went, "Oh, Firefox has blown up. Would you like me to start again?" Yes, please. "Oh, Firefox tabs has blown up. Would you like me to?"
Honestly, Firefox just
fake news. Fake news.
For me,
Firefox has always been rock solid for me across.
What I always notice is that like it's for me, it's always been stable, but resource management is just terrible. Like
resources is way better now.
No, gig. I don't care about
uses less RAM, but the thing is that the way it does things like tab isolation is a bit much. Like it doesn't actually use them the way it should be using them.
Yeah, it does it better now.
It's lazy.
It's not the way it used to be.
It's better than it used to be, but not good enough.
No, it's better. It's better than Chrome. The way it does it. Yes, it is because it does the isolation without being
connected to other bits.
It is connected. What are you talking about?
Wasn't it like partially isolated for quite a while there? Did they fix that?
Yeah. No, it's always been isolated, and now they're even doing like the web extensions are isolated too. But the way they did it was the tabs were isolated to different processes, so you could actually you can control the amount of processes that that are allowed for the tabs to be used, rather than every single tab as a process.
So that's fixed now.
Yeah, that's why Chrome takes up so much memory, is because
it's been fixed for about since Quantum basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got a fan in chat though, Rocco.
A fan in chat?
Yeah, Terry Love mentioning to me.
Sucked. Wait a minute.
Rocco, did you get your? Oh, sorry, Zebedee Boss. Did you get your Firefox from Rocco?
I love you, Terry. You're the best.
I don't know. I have problems with it on. It seems to be more so on Mate here, where it freezes and stuff, and it just I don't. And I like the dark theme, and it's still. I don't care how many tweaks you put in, it still doesn't play nice with the dark theme.
I'll tell you what, guys. Chromium with hardware acceleration.
No.
If you can find me some replacements for the extensions that I have, then I might.
Well, you can
try
actually
Firefox
probably
again.
get some of those extensions to work in Firefox,
But you can't,
some of
because
them
I
can.
tried. It
Where do I
drove me
turn
insane.
Where do I
Fake
turn
news.
on hardware acceleration, Chicken?
It's in Chromium. They have a package called Chromium VAPI. I think you pronounce it VAPI. It's VAAPI, and it's like a hardware acceleration package. Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to try that.
Pretty cool stuff.
Is it an extension or in the settings?
It's a separate package. So it should basically, when you install it, it would more or less just be like normal Chromium, but now it has hardware acceleration abilities.
For Intel hardware, right?
I think so, but I think it also handles AMD stuff, but I'm not entirely sure how far they've gotten with that.
I've got AMD. It's working fine on mine. No issues. Yet. Cross your fingers. Knock on wood.
So
it's
it's
Linux.
a-
It will end up hurting.
So Arch has a GStreamer BOPI, and then it has the Intel Media Driver that
GStreamer's
has
the best.
BOPI, whatever you would call it, in there. So
VOPI.
VOPI. That's what we're going with.
The VDPAL?
VAAPI.
I think it might be like video acceleration something something, or maybe not. And I'm
Now,
just
if you're running NVIDIA, it's not going to work for you.
yeah. They can't
NVIDIA
connect.
uses VDPAU.
That vaguely explains why I don't see it in my repos.
Way to throw the bucket of water on everything, Adam.
I try my best.
That's weird. That's weird because I'm just looking at a website now, Linux Uprising, that says that it says that the patch will only work with Intel and AMD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dan has
basically-
arrived.
So what is basically what is being said right now by Adam specifically is Team Green.
Yeah. Because see, our GPUs are so powerful, they don't need any help with that. They're too busy playing games and other.
Right. They're doing the important stuff.
Always.
It's like, nah. Decoding video in the browser is it's so last decade.
Child's play.
It really is a problem.
Yeah.
But
Dan, do you want to get any thoughts in on Deep End before we head out?
Yeah, I thought Deep End was okay. It's not my style. The one thing I really didn't care for was the way the whole configuration stuff works out. Yeah, it was okay. It's just not for me.
Right.
I ended up building it twice. I put it on. I started with Manjaro, and then I don't know. I moved right over to full blown Arch. So
Right. Well, I'll ask you the same question I asked Joe. Did you notice a difference between what Manjaro did versus regular Arch? Like, did they do a lot of customizing on Deep End, or was it pretty much the same?
no, it was pretty much the same. They had the only differences were like they had the Manjaro hardware settings and stuff.
Yeah.
That they put in everything. And they had PAMAC. Obviously, there's no graphical package. I could have installed PAMAC, but it came with PAMAC on Manjaro.
Let's not talk about PAMAC, all right?
Yeah, no, sorry about that. I know that's a sore subject, but
Oh, man.
Okay, so the Chromium hardware acceleration is really easy. Just go to Chrome://flags, and then there's an override software rendering. Enable it, relaunch it, and it's done.
That's kind of yes and kind of no. It kind of doesn't work very well unless you actually have the things to power that. Like, so more or less, if it's not being used, you won't notice a difference. But if it is being used, like it should just lower CPU usage. But there is a VDPAU Chromium package as well, but I don't know if it's in like normal repos, but you can find it in the AUR because I know how much you love Arch, Seb.
I don't think the NVIDIA driver on Linux supports decoding DP9 in hardware, so
I would doubt it.
things like
Yeah.
YouTube is probably not even going to make a difference.
It'd be a little bit challenging when it's that warning that says experimental features ahead.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It's chicken. It's actually called Video Acceleration API.
Oh, see, I was close.
Well, there is a setting in Chrome in the advanced settings to use hardware acceleration when available, but I don't know what that means.
It's the when available part that
that's never available.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you
But
go
it's
to
kind of
like
great that you need acceleration for that, where Firefox doesn't need it because it's free.
Yeah, 'cause Firefox is the best.
So if you go into
ever.
Chrome and you go to Chrome / I think GPU, does that tell you like that hardware acceleration is enabled, or does it tell you that Linux is not supported?
There's a list like mine. The first thing it says graphics is hardware flash hardware accelerated.
Yeah, so under graphics feature, there should be a video decode, I think. Yeah, it says unavailable on mine.
Yeah, me too.
Hold on.
So that's going to be out of the question.
Yeah.
I've got mine. But I'm
What do you use, Michael?
I've got a Vega 64.
Oh, I use Firefox.
Oh, okay, all right.
Firefox keeps crashing. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be
Firefox for the
honest,
win.
Firefox for the win.
Yep. Container tabs are the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Zeb, that just seems to be a problem for you. Your Vega 64 didn't work and your Firefox doesn't work.
That's because he's Team Green.
Absolutely. Team Green all the way, baby.
Yes. Team Green.
That's why your Firefox doesn't work.
Well, I don't know. I got a Team Red CPU and a Team Green video card. So what does that
Yeah,
say?
but the
Oh
thing
my
is,
God,
Wendy,
that's heinous. You can't do that.
Christmassy.
Wendy,
Peter,
why
Peter.
is it not working on multiple OSs.
Peter, you Team Green or Team Red?
All I know is that I have a Chromebook, not a Firefox book.
So take
sorry.
that,
I'm
you
sorry.
Firefox fans.
Yep. It'd be much nicer if it was a Firefox book, but you know, that's
But it's not.
See, the whole thing with the hardware acceleration thing, it doesn't really matter because, only people with lesser machines that aren't worthy of having an NVIDIA card require the hardware acceleration.
Right on, man. Right on.
I mean, I have an NVIDIA card, but
I think the only reason it's super useful is probably laptop applications, if I'm not mistaken. It's supposed to be like a slightly better on
Yeah, for
battery
battery
or
life,
something. Yeah.
Based on what I can see that I don't have enabled, it looks like it's basically just stuff for gaming in your browser.
That will
Which-
probably do it as well. Yeah.
I mean, that's partially of it. I wouldn't say it's just for that.
I just like to
Yeah,
point out that I've got GPU acceleration available because I'm Team Red and that's the best.
Whatever.
Or, just pipe your YouTube videos into MPV and call it a day.
Yeah.
I have a
guys,
video
what
card that doesn't need
colors mean?
acceleration. It's just that good. So, Team Green for the win.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need anything else.
1080
What's that?
Ti with 11 gigs of RAM. It doesn't need acceleration.
The internet.
What's your question?
What's the red and what's green?
Red is AMD, green is NVIDIA.
Okay, I'm in NVIDIA.
Oh,
See, he's Team Green.
I had
We
so
knew
much
it.
hope.
It's the
I'm
shirt.
sorry, but I'm using Alienware laptops from 8 years ago. So that's
Oh yeah,
Well, 8 years ago, AMD was not worth
By the
using.
way, guys.
that's
here-
true.
Here's Enzo booted up as a live CD.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Very nice.
Well,
you
you'll
actually
have
do
to
it in
come
the-
back next week and let us know how it is.
Little secret for you guys, I actually don't have a particular team because I use NVIDIA and
I know.
and AMD hardware. So, but I just like fueling the fire.
I like how it has Enso already installed and I'm still downloading Voyager.
Should have picked Enzo.
Downloading from where?
Source
It took me
for it.
like it took me
Apparently, Australia.
You should pick your own server there, dude.
Yeah, SourceForge
No.
took me like 30 seconds to download it.
Yeah. Nice try, chicken. Mine downloaded a long time ago.
Hey, but you're in Australia, so that's cheating.
I'm close to the source, right?
All right. That's gonna be it because it's like time. It's ding dong time.
It's ding dong time.
You're actually going to end on time.
Ding dong time.
Ding dong time.
Wait.
Rocco, did you guys pick a challenge for this coming week? Or what?
We did, and it's gonna be your choice of either Enzo or Gnome Voyager.
Oh.
Voyager Gnome. Whichever
Don't
you
sound
wanna
too
say.
excited, Joe.
I used to have a phone.
1810?
called Voyager.
Enzo
1810,
actually
yeah.
looks interesting. Like I would have to admit that. Like they've done like it's one of those like weird like creative distros, but what they're doing looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, it
Look,
was-
it's one of those distros that you look at and you say, "Man, that could be really good," or it could be a really big dumpster fire. One or the other.
Well,
We
I mean,
won't
it
know
could be
until we
really
try
good.
it.
Like that looks like it has potential.
Yes,
And it might still
exactly.
have potential, just not follow through with it.
Right. All right, PZ, last word, brother.
Well, the last words this week is, and I know there's a few people who say it every week, but I really do want to thank Rocco, Big Daddy Linux, for allowing us this forum every week. It's the highlight of my week, apart from Destination Linux, of course. But it's really, really an amazing time. Thank you very much indeed, Rocco.
Happy birthday, brother.
Cheers.
Wendy, last word.
If you have a really busy weekend, don't uninstall VLC because then you have to reload the computer.
We never did get into that story.
No.
Yes, don't uninstall VLC or you might have to reinstall your system. That's the moral of the story.
Wow.
Or you could watch what you're uninstalling. One or the other. I don't know. But
Yeah, don't do anything in a hurry. Don't decide, oh, I'm just gonna hurry up, uninstall this. Yeah, it's fine, and then everything crashes and
right.
Less crazy.
All right, Nate, last word.
I'm hoping for a fun time with Enzo. Sounds like a mixed bag, and this could be a lot of fun.
Nice. Colin, last word.
Well, I'm moving from deep in to get myself deep into Enzo OS.
Oh no.
What's your initial thoughts, Colin? What's your feeling? Your gut feeling? What's it tell you?
I really don't know. It really hasn't. From what who was it? Tony Simmons was saying it could be a bit of a disaster, but we'll see how we go. But
acid
maybe,
reflux.
maybe they need some feedback. You know, these
Yep.
distros do need feedback, and you know that's why we do this to see whether it works, what it's like, and you've got quite a few different people here who have different perspectives on distros, and it's good.
Right.
So.
All right, Dave, last word.
Happy birthday, Zeb. Thank you, Rocco. Thank you, all of you, for this place and this time.
I agree. Adam, last word.
Well, thanks for putting this on, Rocco. Happy birthday, Zeb. Hopefully many more to come. And here's hoping Voyager finishes downloading before the next biddle. So
Thomas, last word.
Happy birthday, Zeb. Thanks for having us, Rocco. Glad to be back. And yeah, check out Jogger OS at joggeros.ml, especially if they like gaming.
Nice. All right, Peter, last word.
Thanks for having me here. It's a big experience. It's been great.
Excellent.
Awesome. Climby.
Yeah, glad to be here as always. Happy birthday, Zeb. I actually just remembered that I need to install another OS on my AMD laptop. I still have NixOS on it from the when we did the command line only. So I think I'm gonna actually try Enzo and Voyager. That way I can hate on Pantheon maybe more.
Yep, you do like pain. Yep. Chicken, last word.
This is blasphemy. Pantheon is the best.
Is that your last word?
Yeah.
Scott, last word.
Well, as always, great show. Happy birthday, Zeb. And Rocco, also, I heard your episode 101 interview with Noah, or Noah interviewing you. That great episode, Ask Noah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was classic. Anyway, being that I'm Rocket, I guess I'm going to look forward to the Voyager OS and continue on with other endeavors.
Nice.
See you guys next week.
Michael, last word.
Yeah, looking forward to try Voyager. And just a word of caution, I'm still traumatized by Magento experience. Don't try it. And to everyone else, so we just know, Team Green for the win.
Yes. Love it. Joe, last word.
Oh, happy birthday, Zeb, of course. I didn't know it was your birthday, but I hope you had a fabulous day or having a fabulous day or whatever. So that it went well. I have to say one thing really quick. I walked out of the room for a few minutes today, and I was across the hall folding some towels. We got laundry over there, and I'm listening to Michael talk, and all of a sudden it goes blank, and I thought, wow, he stopped early. So that's 5 minutes, whatever. I walk back in, and I see him sitting there, and then all of a sudden he starts laughing his head off and realized he was muted. So there went the...
It was even better if you could have watched him, because he was full on, just so into what he was talking about.
And for the record, Chicken, I wish you were here last week when he was a little bit more hoarse, because you two guys sounded like brothers. But anyway, I hope you guys all have a great, and girls have a great week. And
All right, Michael, last word.
First, Zebby birthday haps. And yeah, the patrons will get to watch that in full if they want to. That's be great. But the show
I'll
will be
watch it
actually okay.
I'll watch it again.
I can't wait. Okay, I'm considering not posting it now. So the show actually just finished rendering while we're doing this thing, the biddle. So the show will be actually posted tomorrow morning.
Ooh,
That will be
wow.
shocking for everyone, including me.
We'll wait and see. Dan, last word.
I don't know if I can follow that one up. No, thanks for having us. Sorry I was late, and I look forward to this every week. So, happy birthday to Zeb. Hope it was
Thank
a good
you.
one. Yep. All right.
So just before you do finish, Rock, I'm going to be really, really cheeky because I want to give a massive shout out to Dreaming Wolf and Ritual 301. Whilst the show was working and we're all in chatting away, they're in chat with John and they got his arch fixed.
Nice.
That's the beauty of the Linux community. Well
Yep.
done, boys.
Nice.
Thank you.
Way to go, Dave.
Not-
Way to go, Ritual. All right. Thank you all for showing up. I love having the chat. I love talking to everybody. It's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Join us in the Telegram group at, and I always get this wrong, but it's t.me/Big Daddy Linux Live. You can check out the progress on either GNOME Voyager or Enzo. Other than that, that's it for us. We'll see you all next week.
This is the INSO of this particular voyage. For this.
Wow.
Am I going to have to